Hi.
Hi. Weird, right?
Yeah, kind of weird.
It's a little weird. So we're trying something different. We're in Vegas, so we figured we would record an episode so we're not too far behind.
Right.
So we took a little trip. We're at our favorite Circa in Vegas.
Yep.
It's actually our last night.
Yeah.
Right? I know. Been here for a few days. It's been fun. We're also trying some wireless mics. This should be interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
We're dedicated.
We are dedicated for the most part. We could probably be a little bit more diligent. But anyway. So welcome back. Shower Talk with Tina and Norm.
Welcome
a
back.
lot of bullshit intro before we got to that. I could probably crop it out, but I'm not going to because I'm lazy.
Plus, it's
just how we are.
and real.
Right. Episode 46, we said,
Yep,
right?
46.
I'm going to say words. The words got in the way.
Words
right?
get in the way.
Words get in the way, not got in the way. I guess it's both. It's like it made us think of the old Gloria Estefan song, right?
Mm-hmm. It did.
Not stealing it from her, No. All props to Gloria Estefan.
Just the words.
Right. Just the words. That's right. No song. That's funny. So, what do we think it means? Like, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but what do we think it means?
I think the biggest part of why we wanted to talk about this is because we know so many people that come to us to talk about their relationships and things that are going on in their lives. And unfortunately, it's repeat things that keep happening over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because the people around them, whether it's work or relationships or whatnot, family, tell them one thing and show them another. And although we see with our eyes exactly how someone actually is treating us and how valued we are by them or how important we are to them, when they tell us what we want to hear, we blind it. Oh,
right.
I know that this person's been really shitty to me, but he or she said that they love me, or he or she said that they weren't going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so the words became more important than the actions, and you find yourself in the same spot over and over again.
Sure. What do we think what is it getting in the way of? Because we're saying words get in the way.
Of being healed and healthy and happy.
Making good decisions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
People get caught up in, I know we've talked about this a bunch, just even on our own. I don't even know how much we've touched on it in the podcast, but they get caught up in believing certain things and it derails them, right? That's kind of what we're saying.
Absolutely.
You're on a certain path.
Relying on that person to be honest.
Right. And you're relying, you're hoping, and sometimes there's, if we use the example of parents, right?
Yeah.
Parents are a tough one because we know a lot of parents, and we've said it before, that they did the best they can at a certain age, if they're doing it earnestly, right? We're not talking about abusive or terrible parents.
Right, of course.
I mean, I guess that kind of goes without saying, but I don't want somebody going, well, my fucking dad did this, No, we're not talking about your asshole dad, right? We're talking about we have trust in them, and it's stupid stuff like later, right? Oh, you want to play? Yep, later. We'll do it later, and then later never comes. Right. So that sets you up a certain mentality, right? You learn later means never.
And
right? Would you say
because
later means never?
Yeah,
a lot of times
much
as parents.
It means never. However, it sucks because there's a yes and there's a no.
Right.
How about teaching us about yes and no early instead of later, which is nonsense. You're basically setting us up for disappointment.
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, right?
Well,
so.
The problem is parents are trying to make their own lives easier.
Of course.
Because they don't want to listen to their kid cry or whine or piss and moan about whatever it is they want. And it's kind of a cop-out. It sucks. I've been there as a parent. I've done that. And, you know, you don't think about it because in the time you're trying to get through whatever it is you're trying to do.
Of course, I'm sure.
So, you know, in parents' defense, you've got a lot going on. There's shit going on, but you have to stop and think. When you have the time, you have to stop and think about what you're saying and why it matters. You know?
Yeah.
It gets in the way of your child being...
well, trust. Let's face it.
Yeah. Being able to trust, you know? And like you said, disappointment. That's a big part of that.
Well, and then I love the parents who get pissed off that their kids are liars. Where do you think they fucking learned it from?
Right. That's the first lie. Later. Right. Maybe later.
I mean, there's a lot of things. And again, I get it. You have to in certain cases. However.
Yeah.
I mean, no doesn't kill anybody.
No. Right.
As a matter of fact, if they learned to hear no and deal with the disappointment or the rejection or whatever way earlier, they'd probably be more capable in you know, real life as adults.
Right.
I mean,
so
there's a lot of people who don't know how to deal with rejection because they were never told no by mom and dad.
For sure. There's and there's even more of them now as generations are growing up and coming into play. There's even more of them that they weren't told no.
Right.
They weren't denied certain things, and now they're like, what do you mean no? You know, when they get into the workforce and into the real world, they don't understand why they're being denied something.
Right.
Or something just doesn't make sense to them. They don't get it. What do you think as far as adult-wise goes, though? What are some examples you would say?
Well, I'll use myself as an example.
Okay.
So
this is the first time we're ever doing this on the show.
Absolutely. Right. I never give examples.
No, you always have great examples, but
well, these are a lot of reasons why these things come about as well.
Right.
However, so obviously we all know that I had a long-term relationship with someone for, you know, when I was younger, and unfortunately, because I am a very trusting person, you know, there would be these shitty things that would happen. So I'm gonna say, for example, for example, we got together. We were 19 years old and both virgins, and you know, being that I always had a lot of male friends, you know, a lot of them would be like, oh, you know, you don't ever want to be with the first woman that you sleep with, and you know, you got to, you know, sow your wild oats and all this other crap and whatever. And, you know, so I would hear those kind of things. And I remember a couple of years in, I think we were like 23-ish, maybe like 3-4 years in at this point.
Yeah.
And I had sat down and just basically said, do you feel like you need to, like, should we break up and you go do whatever you want? And he was like, you want to break up with me? And I was like, I don't want to break up with you. However, if we're really going to have this long term and we're going to get married and have a family and all this other stuff, you know, I need to make sure that this is what you really want to do. This is what I hear. And he's like, no, it's, you know, I got lucky first time around. And I'm like, are you sure? Because I'd rather have you do this now. I don't want any, you know, midlife crisis bullshit or anything in the future that, and he was all about, no, he was like all nervous and no, you know, like upset. Like, you know, is this what you want to do? And I don't want to do it. I don't need to do it. I already know what I'm doing, right? I'm here. And he said no. So I think we were like 24. And then, so of course you told me that, and you know, he was somewhat normal in those early years, but you know, but by the time we turned like 25, 26, he started to be a little, so when his dad moved, he was a little different, traveling more and kind of staying away from home longer. And then I remember, so we're 27, and all of a sudden, he started acting kind of weird. And I was like, what's the matter with you? Like, why are you being kind of distant? He kept, being dismissive, and, the actions were weird, but the words were like, nothing's wrong. And I remember feeling something was wrong. And then one day he comes over and he's like, I need to break up. I need to see what else is out there. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
We talked about this like 3 years ago, and you said you didn't need, well, I didn't think I needed to. It was like, are you fucking kidding me? So he ultimately broke up with me to do a road trip out to California and go work out on Venice Beach and go sow his wild oats and whatever. And I remember, like, I was pissed.
Yeah.
Like, pissed.
Of course.
Because I gave him the opportunity to do that.
Right.
And he didn't want it, didn't need it. And the other fucked up part was there was no communication. There was no, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what's going on in my life. There was nothing. Zero, zilch. All of a sudden just springing on me. Boom, I'm breaking up with you.
Yeah.
And leaving for 30 days.
Sure.
And so, again, the actions... So the crazy part is I didn't want to believe, obviously, that something was wrong, because who the hell ever wants to believe that? And then the person's telling you that nothing's wrong.
Yeah. And
then this gets, thrown at you. So you're like, okay. And then the funny part was I was fucking devastated, of course, because, how many years into this was I now? And now this is what's being told. And and I didn't want to be sitting around like, I'm going to wait and see, whatever's going to happen. Came back and was like begging me to get back together, and I was like, no way, this isn't, I can't trust you anymore. And
right.
This, and he was like, literally was like, come on, I made a mistake. And and of course I didn't get to hear anything about, there was nobody that was like you. I met people, but there's nobody like you, and blah blah blah, all that crap.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I really can't believe anything that you're telling me, because you showed me something different.
Right.
And then the crazy part was he like literally like begged to take me back, and he promised it would never happen again, and I needed to go through this in order for this to happen, and blah blah blah. And I was so hesitant. I kept saying no, and then finally kind of wore me down. So I took him back, and things were good for a little bit, and then 3 years later, boom.
Right.
Gone, done. And I was like, what the fuck? So again, it's my fault, because I believed someone. The actions were there, and I held my ground for quite a while, and then I got, the actions were coming back, so it wasn't just words, because I had said I don't trust anything that you're saying.
Right.
And then the actions were back, like, being more attentive and spending more time and paying more attention and not traveling as much. All the things that he knew bothered me, he wasn't doing them anymore. It was like, oh, okay, well, maybe he was really serious about this. So then I agree. And then again, things were good. And then again, it was like, oh, I just can't, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. So to me, I paid attention, but I did, some of those people are really good with their words, and kind of, if you're a trusting person, you want to believe it.
I think a big part of that is history, right?
Yeah.
So you have to pay attention to, we know words mean nothing without actions.
That's correct.
Ultimately, right? We know that. It's exactly what you were just talking about. But I think if, in your case, early on when that happened, if there was no basis up until that point to think differently between the words versus the actions, okay?
Right.
And now you fast forward 3 years, a lot of shit can happen to a person, or they change, and something's going on.
That's why I said there was no communication
Correct.
about that.
Right. So I think, I think the biggest part of that, though, is you have to learn from the action or the absence of action, right?
Absolutely.
The absence of action in the, I feel like I want to say something really smart there, but I don't think I can. In the absence of action in the presence of words, I guess, that they're just they don't match.
No, right.
You know, the words of words that match.
Yeah.
You know, if the words are there, but we're missing the actual support of those words,
right.
then, or the follow through on those words, then you have to start paying attention. And that's where the disappointment, going back to the child, you know, as a kid, the action wasn't there. Oh, they give you false hope.
Right. Oh, we're
right.
Gonna
It's
do
false
this
hope.
later. We're going to do this later.
It's ultimately false hope for people.
Correct.
And as a child, yeah, it's setting you up. It's crappy, but as an adult, you now have to figure that out. Like as a child, you didn't have a choice other than, what were you going to do? Stop asking your parents for stuff, especially if it was, hey, Dad, you want to come play? Hey, Mom, you want to come play? Can we do this? Oh, maybe later. And you know, yeah, you learn that meant no, and it's shitty, but you don't have a choice in that matter.
Right.
As the adult, you do. And where the words get in the way is when you blindly trust when there is no action. Well, that's what they said they're going to do, and then they never follow through on it. You know, business partners, same thing. You know, oh yeah. We're going to do this deal together. Yeah, it's great. I need you to get the money. I'll make all this happen. And then they can never come through, and then everybody's disappointed, or everybody's lost money, or whatever. That's why you don't do business with somebody who's just starting to do business, right?
Right.
You know, or maybe that type of business.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a house flip, you don't go into business with cousin Jimmy, who's never done a fucking house flip before, but he wants to make some money, and you know, he's excited. He's excited. That's not to say in his case, it's, you know, I think there's differences to pay attention to. With cousin Jimmy, he's probably honestly wanting to make something of it.
Mm-hmm.
He just doesn't have the experience yet to make his actions meet his promises, his words.
Right.
I mean, it's the truth.
No, it's true.
But when it comes to a love relationship, you know, like in the example that you were talking about, you have to pay attention to that kind of stuff.
Well, you're going along in your life, waking up every morning, living your life, being in this committed relationship to this other person, and then you find out that they're living this whole other life behind your back.
Right.
Without you.
Right.
Without even thinking about you, and then
Potentially.
when you start to question, hey, what's going on or whatever, then they give you the words.
Yeah.
They'll sprinkle some words in here. Oh, here you go. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm wrong. Oh, okay. You know,
right.
You're really, this
it's
is
a constant lead on.
I mean, it is kind of, and then the fucked up part is that you look back and sometimes you're like, damn, was I gullible? And then at the same time, it's like, I don't like not being able to trust people.
Yeah.
Like, until you show me I can't trust you, I'll trust you.
Right.
However, on the flip side of that coin is, once I don't trust you, I'm done with you.
Right.
Like, there's no, I'm sorry I slipped up, or, you know, whatever fucking garbage people want to throw. Because now at that point, you showed me that you can't be trusted when it was given to you, and then you didn't even respect it. So to me, it's like, you know, that's just me though.
Right.
So until you give me a reason not to. However, I do pay attention to actions, and it does make life a little bit easier when you realize someone's full of shit. And it's like, you hate to say that, but that's ultimately what it is, right? Someone who's
words, lip service.
I mean, you know, and the thing that sucks is when you're kind of relying on that person, or living with that person, or taken care of by that person. I mean, that's the part that I think is the hardest. And I think that's why people choose to do this.
Right.
When they see it doesn't quite fit.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing. And I think that's the big reason. And I understand and I get it. However, it's just another form of settling. You're basically saying that you'd rather find comfort in being treated like shit in something you know, versus being on your own to heal and figure shit out and find a better fit for you. I mean, that's ultimately what happens.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is the control of it. You know, you want to believe in a person, but it's constant bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It's constant. I don't want to call them lies. I feel like there's
It's not a lie if you believe
that's
it.
right. It's not a lie if you believe it. I think I don't know that everybody is lying. I think sometimes they may have the best of intention, but their follow through is poor.
Potentially.
Or they have their own shit in there that's going on that prevents them from making it happen. And that's fair to them, but it's unfair to you. Right? Because your life can't stop and be shitty because you're waiting for somebody to
That's exactly right.
catch up to you. They don't match, it's one of our early podcasts is the effort,
Yep.
Their effort, they may be giving you 100%, but for you, that's actually only 70% of what you really need.
Correct.
And and those actions and words are part of that. It's part of it.
Yeah.
So they may be doing everything they possibly can. That doesn't mean you have to sit around and wait for it.
Right.
Yeah. If it's a lasting, loving relationship that you have time in on, that you want to try to see it through, repair it.
But both people have to
give a person time to heal their own shit so that they can give you the 100% you deserve, right? If you want to do that, that's okay. Don't do it just because you got 10 years into it, right? If you're not getting, if it's been 10 years and it's been 10 years of you not getting out of a relationship what you deserve, then it's probably time to move on. I would say.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
And I think like in that situation for me I was trying to be proactive to where those kind of things weren't going to come up. Because I watched it happen in my own family with, my own parents and people it's shit happens. People get together too young and, you don't even really know who you are when you're that young. And, and again, you might grow one way and the other person isn't growing with you. They're growing this way or going the exact opposite. And I understand that happens, and it doesn't mean automatically. It's all about the communication and where your head is at and what you're wanting and needing and those kind of things. And I think you need those. So that's why those words are important, because if you're in a loving, trusting relationship, you have to believe what that person's telling you.
Right.
So it's like, so when someone says, I'm coming home tonight for dinner, and they never come home, and that's it.
Right.
I mean, now what?
Right.
And then when they do come home 3 days later and you're making excuses for them, how do you feel about yourself?
Right.
Because you called people and told people what happened, and people got upset for you on your behalf, and they were angry at the other person, and now they're back and all of a sudden, and no one could say anything, and everybody's walking around eggshells around you, and everybody knows that you're not happy and whatever, and you're making all these excuses. How do you feel about yourself?
Yeah.
Like, you're basically choosing...
It can't feel good. Right.
Well, you're choosing someone's words that clearly they know they can sprinkle the magic words on you, and then all of a sudden, miraculously, it's fixed.
Right.
It is crumbs.
We talked about that a long time ago. And that's a very good analogy that I don't know if I think we've used it probably early on, but we haven't talked about it in a long time, is crumbs are a big thing, right? Crumbs are literally words, though.
Yeah.
That's usually what they're in a one-sided relationship. They are, like you said, they're sprinklings of hope. They're sprinklings of I don't want to say validation, but they give you this false sense of, oh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Well,
or it's going to happen this time.
They've got you on the hook.
Right.
Okay, here's you. You're on this hook and you're stuck on the hook.
A good example is the cheater, right? The cheater is the we'll use the analogy of a male stringing a female along, saying he's going to divorce his wife and all this stuff, and they continue to believe it, and he just keeps it on, and they're now in this relationship.
Yeah,
I don't want to call it committed. For that person, it's committed relationship. The other person, it's not. In a lot of cases, I'm not saying it doesn't always work out that way, but using that example, it's words, and it's literally again. I go back to false hope.
The best of both worlds.
Right.
That person.
That's for the
one that's
cookie,
telling
the cookie crumbler.
That's
right.
correct.
the cookie crumbler. Hashtag cookie crumbler. Don't steal it.
No, that's true. That's the person that's they're holding you. They're the fisherman who's holding you on the hook.
Yeah, the little fucking Keebler elf. You son of a bitch. Keebler elf, cheating bastard. But I mean, really, that person is getting it. The other person is in a committed relationship, and they're kind of hanging on every little word
and planning their life around this other person who's fucking lying
or
all the time.
The other part of that in this scenario, and probably in other scenarios, but it's not a cheating scenario. It goes back to effort and how much you get out. You might get I'm going to use promise, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to get a promise. You're going to get a promise. You're going to get a promise, and then on the fourth promise, it comes through, and then you're going to get a promise. You're going to get a promise. You're going to get a promise. The fourth promise comes through, so they're still coming through, right? They're just not coming through.
When you need them?
When you need them. It's like your boss saying they're going to pay you weekly, but you only get one check every 4 weeks, and they still owe you for three weeks worth of work, but, times is hard, so you're only going to get one paycheck. We'll get you, I promise, but they just keep stringing you along doing it. You're not going to stick around for that shit.
Yeah.
You're not going to stick around. Why? Because you've put in effort, and their effort hasn't matched your effort. Their effort is the pay that you deserve for the work that you've put in for your effort, and they only give you 25%. Well, you're not going to stay around for that shit.
Right.
Your relationship is the same way. The pay you get back is what they've told you they're going to give and what you deserve and what you expect in your relationship.
Right.
We're not talking about unrealistic expectations. We could go down a whole fucking rabbit hole of that. And we can, but for this purpose, let's say you want a healthy relationship, you want these all of the good stuff, and you're putting in that 100%, but you're only getting 25% back in a paycheck, and you stick with that.
Yeah.
The only reason I could ever see you sticking with that is if you're with a person that has some trauma they're trying to work through, and it's going to be right for you. But there's also a point where you have to know that's got to get cut off.
Right.
Right?
Right. And then on the flip side of all this, there's also, when it comes to people wanting certain words told to them.
Yeah.
Like, let's go back and use an example of someone who got into a fight. Let's use the example I used earlier, the made up one. Somebody gets into a fight, and the guy leaves and doesn't come home for dinner, doesn't come home for like 3 days or something.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, there's no conversation. First of all, that's a shitty thing to do, to leave someone and not tell them where you are and what's going on. That's just
terrible.
In and of itself is fucking awful. Right. However, you've gone and you talk, so you call the first person that you call, your mom, your dad, your sister, your best friend, whoever the hell you decide to call, and you're crying and telling the whole story, and the first person you talk to tells you something truthful, and you don't want to hear the truth, so then you hang up the phone with this person, then you pick up the phone and you call the next person, and you keep calling until somebody tells you what you want to fucking hear.
Yeah.
Even though that's bad for you and it's wrong and it's hurting you and it's crushing your soul and fucking up your whole future, hey, you know what? Norm told me this. So even though these 5 people told me this, Norm told me this, and that's what I wanted to hear. So I'm going with what Norm said.
Right.
I call it answer shopping.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's another thing that people do because, again, the words are, oh, you're giving me the words I need. It's so fucked up to think that words can mean so much as far as, and then I know there's going to be like scholars and professors and writers and people that are going to be like, oh my God, the words, yes, because words can be used for meaning and
for sure
power and energy and all this other shit.
Absolutely.
However, it can also be used for shitty things.
Well,
Like when it's not truthful, those words, the same words that could be beautiful, can also, cut into a person and hurt them.
Love bombing is a great example.
There you go. Perfect
love bombing
example.
is a really good example. Yeah. They're saying it over and over again, and again,
they're wooing you.
Could give you a gazillion variations of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to love bombing, somebody may be a person that falls in love easily, so it's legit, right?
Yeah, of course.
We're talking about the person that's just trying to draw you in,
Yeah,
it's a word. It literally is just a word for them,
mm-hmm.
but you put weight and value in that word. So when somebody says it, you feel a certain way, like it's a big deal. There's a reason that all these TV shows, this one doesn't want to say it first, and this one wants to say it first, and all these, sitcoms and rom-coms and all that shit. You don't want to be the first one to say it because you realize how important it is, right? So there's weight to it. And they abuse it. Obviously, they're there to take advantage, and they're or they're not. They could be one of these people that says it a lot, and then they just as easily fall out of love. So it's not love.
That's true.
But to them, that's their
it's
mentality.
Infatuation.
Yeah, it is. But
it's
to
like
them, that's love. That's all
toy.
they've ever known.
Yeah.
Some people, that's all they've ever actually known when it comes to that kind of stuff, which is terrible. There was something else I was thinking of when you were talking a second ago, and it was about the words. And I think it was the weight, because so this weekend being here, we have a friend that came with us, and we've talked about one of the early podcasts was appreciation, and words. When it comes to, I think part of it is because I still haven't spent the time to read in the love languages.
Oh yeah.
I haven't read apologize if I butcher this, but just the title of it messes with my head, so I have to clearly define it.
The 5 love languages.
Well, not just those, but the one specific words of affirmation.
Oh yeah.
Right. To me, for me, I don't need them, right? It's not my thing, and it confuses me a little bit too, because with exactly what we're talking about,
right.
They're just fucking words. They're literally
words
can
have
be
actions behind them.
Correct.
They're strong.
And that's part of what I was going to say is so the friend that's with us early on, he's uncomfortable with, that kind of stuff. And he said, listen, we're going to be here all weekend. We don't need to fucking say thank you for every little thing that we do for one another. Well, he's a good friend, but clearly he doesn't know us too well. And the reason that is because it's appreciation. And we want them to know we're not taking them for granted.
Correct. It's so easy to do with everybody.
It is. And the thing is, though, is that in thanking him, he also sees he's not the only one that's putting that effort forth.
Correct.
We put the effort forth in the same types of areas or various areas. It all complements each other. It's just what you do.
Right.
But he's not comfortable with the words. However, we didn't stop doing it. Well, you literally said to him. You said, you agreed to that.
Yeah, he said, I said, thank you. And he said, No, we said we weren't going to say thank you this whole weekend. I go, nope, we didn't agree to that. You said it, not us.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Right.
And he just kind of laughed and then said, fuck you. So,
yeah. Right. And it's, and it's meant out of love, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But it's important to say those things. I don't think those are really, would those be words of affirmation? We're going to read this book because we have to. But
I mean, kind of, in a way it kind of is, but we also told him
I would say
those were not obligatory thank yous either.
Not at all.
Because that's another one that those are just words, right?
Absolutely.
When it's like, like, for example, people do this all the time and it's people trying to be polite.
Yeah.
However, it's obligatory. Hey, Norm, you're going on vacation? Have a nice vacation. Thanks, you too. I'm not going on vacation, but thanks.
Right? It's a habit.
Correct. Right. So
Yeah.
it almost comes out as obligatory. So it's like you're meaning to be kind to the other person when someone says, hey, have a great day. And you're like, thanks, you too. Like,
right.
Okay, but when someone says, go have a nice vacation or, go have a nice walk. And you're like, yeah, you too. The cashier
that says thank you and you go, yeah, you too, or
yeah, just
it's not this. Yeah,
it just doesn't. So I think sometimes that's why some people, aside from the fact that there's way too many people who lost their manners, their moms and dads didn't teach them manners. Let's talk about another podcast. But when people say it, I think personally. So we had an experience this weekend that we normally don't like to talk about it, but this is a perfect thing to talk about. Why don't you tell this is a great time to talk about what happened with the security guard here.
Oh, okay.
Only because it made a huge fucking difference.
Okay. It did make a difference.
Right. Because it
but it's just
validates what we're saying right now.
Yeah. No, I understand. It's a reason, for those that are listening and watching, it's, we all do, hopefully we all do stuff just to do stuff. It's
Correct.
Not for recognition.
But this pertains to this. That's the only reason I brought it up.
So yes, I know what you mean. So we're at the hotel and we came back after watching Mariah Carey in concert. That was an awesome concert, by the way. And at this hotel, they check IDs before you come in because they have a ban list and it's 21 and over. You're not allowed to get in. And it was windy as shit and chilly here in Vegas. And the wind was what was making it really chilly. So the security guard's standing outside at the front door and he has to scan IDs and stuff. And he goes, he asked how you were doing politely. He's like, hey, how you guys doing? You're like, I'm doing good. I'm like, I go, I'm good. How are you? I go, you look like you're fucking cold. And he's like, yeah, and he didn't say a whole lot. I go,
but he was cold.
He was cold. You could tell he was cold out there. And I said, I go, do you want some? I go, would you like a cup of coffee? And he looked at me and like, no, I'm good. I go, I'm not kidding. If you want a cup of coffee, I'll go get you a cup of coffee. It's not a big deal. And he goes, really? Yeah. Do you want cream and sugar in your coffee? How do you want it? Whatever, man. I'll take whatever, Okay, I'll be back. And we went up to the coffee shop that's here in the hotel. It's open 24 hours. And I got coffee. I got coffee and a hot chocolate because I wasn't sure. He didn't really say. I think he was just being appreciative of the fact that we offered it.
He was stunned.
Yeah, he was stunned.
Stunned, by the way.
Which was, okay. That's cool.
We know why.
Right, of course.
Because of this kind of stuff.
Correct.
That's why.
No, people don't do that usually. So.
No, people don't even pay attention to him.
We went back down there and, I said, hey, here you go. And he's like looking at me like, you fucking came back, right? He had to look like, I don't think he thought we were going to come back with the coffee. He had to look
like you said later, but your later was right now.
Right.
Exactly.
So I brought him the coffee back and he's like, oh my God. And I told him what it was. And he's like, are you serious? I don't know what to say. And I'm like, hey. And then of course, he kind of like gave me a little hug and it was funny.
It was awesome.
But the key there is it was awesome because he didn't, it dumbfounded him. But
it was
the
cool.
whole point is we did what we said we were going to do.
That's correct.
I offered him coffee. I could have easily been like, I'm never going to see this fucking guy again. And been like, it's too much trouble. Or it's going to cost me,
whatever.
$7. I don't know him from Adam, whatever the case may be. But had I done that, that dude would have been pissed off at everybody else from then on out.
Instead,
right?
the trickle down to all the people.
Right.
Even today, we saw him today, a day later.
Yeah. So when we came in, it wasn't as windy tonight when we came back because we went to a different place. And I asked him, I said, you look a little warmer tonight. And he stopped and he was scanning. He looked up, he goes, that helped me so much. Thank you. Because he didn't, when I said it, he wasn't looking up.
Right.
And then I think it registered. And it was just
when he
funny.
looked at you, I could tell because he smiled at you.
Yeah. So, it was just cool. And it's cool because
you also showed appreciation to someone who has a thankless job.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that comes from, we love coming to this place. The hotel's fantastic. They always treat us well here. They make sure it's secure. Yep. And he's doing that by sitting out there freezing his fucking nuts off to scan driver's license to make sure assholes that aren't here for a good time aren't coming in and all that stuff.
Well, plus we also see a lot of people get treated like shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here, there's certain people who walk around and...
Yeah. It was just one of those silly things in the moment that...
It was just...
It was like,
But my point was talking about the appreciation part.
I know.
I
get it.
It was something that, like you said, he went home with it because, he was like literally dumbfounded. And it's like you could feel the connection. The way he hugged you was so cool. And it was just, he was like, and happy and smiling.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool because that means everyone else, like he even went back to scanning and he's like, how you guys doing tonight? It was like it changed his energy.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, great. And then it's like it's like
he's pumping people up to come in here instead of treating them like shit.
A pebble in a pond, and they didn't really understand what that meant. And then she said, when you toss a pebble in a pond, it ripples out in there. And she goes, you're the pebble in the pond. And
Absolutely.
I was like, oh, well, I kind of like that. Like that. And that's kind of, and it's simple things. You know what? When you say thank you and you mean it, or,
right.
You hold the door open for someone.
Right.
Or whatever, or let them in traffic, and sometimes it doesn't have to go, you don't have to go buy someone a cup of coffee or a gift or do whatever. I mean, those things are nice if the mood strikes or whatever. It's just a little courtesy, like, when we're walking past people at Jewel and they're looking in the aisle and we're walking past, we're always like, excuse me, as we walk past. Right. I don't ever get people saying excuse me.
No, not at all.
I get people that stand right in fucking front of me like I'm invisible while I'm standing there trying to grab shit off the shelf.
Right.
So it's like kind of funny. But then the flip side of that is, right, I'm not going to not be who I am and stop doing it just because there's, because other people aren't willing to do it.
And I think that a good example in that, not example, but a good point, because I'm going to make it, so I guess it's a good point. I don't know. I don't know why I have to say it's a good point. The point is you have words and you have actions and you have words with actions.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You can have actions without words. Holding the door open for somebody. Not like, oh, let me get that door for you and then not get the door, right? That can happen.
That's true.
You can say, let me get that door for you, and then you get the door and they see that your actions match your words, or you just get the fucking door. But
that's true.
You can have actions and words, and you can have an action in the absence, without words. But you can't, if you just have words, they're nothing.
It's empty.
They're meaningless.
It's a chocolate bunny.
100%. It's a hollow
bunny.
chocolate. Or yes.
House of Cards.
Well, it's the people that want those words. Sometimes I feel like they're the hollow chocolate bunny.
Well, because they're hanging.
They need those, and even if you don't show the actions, they're still gonna appreciate the words. And there's nothing behind them.
And the sad part is for those people that continuously use the word narcissist and toxic.
Yeah.
How do you think that happens? because you're relying on solely the words.
Yeah.
And the narcissists and the toxic people know that you're relying solely on the words and that they
Right.
don't have to do the actions. And guess what?
Right.
Nothing changes.
Right. I think, so we don't really have a timer for me to check. We're winging it here in the hotel room. It's the best we got. I think a big part or things to remember is if you're somebody that's going to use words, you need to fucking back it up.
Yep.
Or else you're going to lose out.
I think that's called integrity.
Right. You're going, but what you don't understand is yet people will put up with it to a point.
That's right.
And then you're going to either lose them or you're going to lose them. Whether it's a love relationship, whether it's a business relationship, whether it's a friendship, if you're not there for them with the actions and you're just giving them lip service, you are going to lose them. And if it's important to you, then you better fucking nut up and do what you say you're going to do. And on the other side, pay attention. Pay attention to if it's all just words and you're not getting any actions.
Or excuses after the words don't have the actions following them.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden there's excuses.
Right. That's true. Which are more words.
Correct.
I will next time. I'm so sorry. I forgot.
I mean,
no
offense to anybody, but it does kind of correspond with, or I'm sorry, align with, someone who's in an abusive, someone who's abusive, right?
Can, for sure.
So they promise it's not gonna happen again. It's not gonna happen again. I'll never do it again. I love you so much.
But the action contradicts
and then
the words.
And then you're like living in fear, think everything's okay, and then now you're living in fear again, and it's like this horrific cycle of. And I know I'm not saying. I mean, I know that's so difficult to get away from, and all And God, if you need that help, please get that help immediately.
Yeah.
However, I'm just saying that's like to make people understand the magnitude of this is that's someone who says they're not going. I would never lay a hand on you, and then
didn't mean to hurt you, and then they do it again.
I mean, and it's because you keep allowing it though too. That's the unfortunate part is like you said, as long as we keep allowing stuff to happen, that's the kind of shit. I mean, I wouldn't change anything about my life. The mistakes I've made, the choices I've made, I've made some dumb choices and, wrong reason choices, whatever you want to call them. However, they've all led me to exactly where I am and the person that I am and what the inner strength that I've, gotten over all these years. And the funny part is though, there's times where I look back on those days like, damn, if I'd have just stuck my ground and never went, never took him back after that one time after he left me like that. It was like, I was strong and I stayed away. And then all of a sudden it was like, because I did go, well, we have all these years and I love his family and, And then you're like, yeah, and he's actually putting in the effort now because, again, the actions were there for a little bit, but that's also along with the narcissist.
Putting in the effort. For now.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And so, until it wasn't necessary anymore, and then there's the whole taken for granted and, all the rest of that stuff.
And I said it the way I did because, again, they're important words. Yeah. Words are important. And we're not saying they're not. We're not saying don't put weight and don't take them seriously. They're
from the right people,
important.
You can.
Correct.
From the right people, you can. When someone when I look someone in the eyes and tell them what I'm telling them, even if it's not something they want to hear or something positive or whatever, it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's something I would back them up. I could back it up. I could, I would do what I say. I wouldn't tell someone I'm going to pick you up at 5:00 and I don't show up, or tell someone I'm going to watch their files for them at work and then not touch any of their files while they're gone.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's happened to me multiple times, unfortunately, while I'm gone and my shit doesn't get worked on, unfortunately. And then there's the excuses and whatever. And you know what? But I'm also, like I said, the person that will cut people off. unfortunately, people are afraid to cut people off.
Yeah.
They need to have all these people around. I need to have lots of people around
Yeah.
me. But again, if it's a bunch of people, hollow people with hollow words, what the fuck are you doing? How are you holding on to
Spinning their
anything? Like,
wheels.
what's happening?
They're
Like,
just
but
spinning
those
their
are
wheels.
the things that we want people to think about, right?
Right.
Is you're holding on to, you're literally holding on to, if you try to grab a house of cards in your hand, what the hell happens?
Right.
It blows over so easily. Any little thing and it's gone.
Yeah.
Why would you put your whole fucking life in that?
Well, they don't realize it until it happens.
Well, pay more attention.
They don't realize it until it happens. And a lot of times it has to happen.
Of course it does.
But
that's what happens to all of us and how we get where we are.
Right. And that's how you learn, though.
Correct.
That's how you learn when is it lip service. And there's a lot of times there's commonalities.
Yeah.
So you're going to find, like, I can look at certain people and tell you a lot of times how they're going to act, behave, do certain things. And a lot of times it's just based on characteristics or mannerisms they have that other people that did the same shit had.
Yeah. That's
right?
true. Mm-hmm.
They'll behave certain ways. They look similar.
Mm-hmm.
I can just tell you, and I know what's going to happen.
You're right.
And it's weird in a lot of ways because that shouldn't be how it is. This person that looks like this, and this person that looks similar to them should have separate actions, but there'll be commonalities in between them, and there'll be outcomes that are the same. And I'm not saying everybody has similar or same outcomes for lots of stuff. I'm saying there's these things that tie them. Yeah.
Patterns and habits.
They behave certain ways. They look certain ways. And you brought up abuse. I can spot them.
Yeah.
A lot of times. There's some, obviously, you can't, right? There's some folks, because they're healed or it wasn't as bad for them or whatever the case may be, right? It's not overt. But the ones that you can tell it was bad, even if they're past it, you can tell they went through it. Because they behave certain ways and they act certain ways. And these aren't the takers, but the takers have the same type of thing. These are the people that have healed from trauma or have trauma in their life. They're going to behave a certain way. That's logical. It's the other ones that there's even physical characteristics that they'll have. And it stands to reason, but it's not, somebody that behaves a certain way born out of trauma and they have commonalities, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
Because they've been abused, whether it's sexual,
emotional,
whether it's, physical, like, beating or whatever. That makes sense. But for people to have certain looks and stuff like that from the other side, it's weird to me. But maybe that's me. But
unfortunately, there's probably because there's so many people
that
have had
emotional
abuse,
Oh,
verbal abuse, which in this, again, you're being verbally abused. Why are words? So that's the other part of it, right? And I don't know if that's because those words are so hurtful that you put a lot of stock into them.
Yeah.
But again, who's saying it, right? Because you can have, we could both look at that bottle of water and we both have different ideas on it, depending on who we are to that person or how, the actions behind our words and our intentions and everything else. We could both be given completely different. I
think verbal comes from
on the person.
You're right, but the verbal abuse, there's the element of fear.
Yes.
That plays into that.
Yes.
Because there's we'll use parents again as an example. What are you crying for? There's nothing to cry over. I'll give you something to cry about. Okay. while we could argue is that verbal abuse or not, you know, different generations are going to argue different
Correct.
facts. The point being is it could be, especially if they're yelling at you about it and you're legit crying over something that there's probably a reason to be crying over it. But you know, they're screaming at you over it. I'll give you something to cry about. Well, there's fear of what the next thing is going to be. So you have to take those words seriously because there's a penalty or a potential penalty.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's where, when it comes to that it's, you don't want to take that, you don't want to not take that seriously. And sometimes it's, if you try to get away from that, it could go to that next step. So not to say that you shouldn't, you shouldn't put any weight to those, but you know your circumstances. You have to figure that part out. But, you know, all things being considered a non-safety related thing, then, you know, make certain decisions.
Well, here's something else I'd like to add too, is if you're going to rely on others for showing the actions behind their words, you best be doing the same thing in those relationships as well.
Correct.
Because that whole double standard of, you know, do as I say, not as I do, or I'm allowed to do it, you're not allowed to do it, or how dare you be that way, but I could be that way, because we see that way too often.
Yeah, of course.
Where someone's pissed at someone for doing something and they're doing the same fucking thing, and you're like, really?
Right.
So you kind of have to, I think, and if you're not seeing a lot of it, I think you're either not paying attention or you're just doing the whole bury your head in the sand kind of shit. Sure. And then the other thing that I learned from Mel Robbins, who's got a fantastic podcast and book, by the way, she said that when you face these things, you know, when you face these issues and you face the potential problems in your relationships and in your life and with yourself, it gives you the opportunity to make better decisions and also to be able to move forward in your life however you see fit.
Right.
Because like you said earlier, if you have someone who says to you, you know, don't leave me, I've got to go, I'm going through, you know, this happened to me when I was younger, or I was triggered by something or whatever, and I don't want this relationship to end. It's just right now. And if you feel that this is someone that you can put in that time and you're not sitting on the sidelines while they're living this life without you, but you're able to work on it and you have that choice. However, now you're dealing with something. Now you know what you're dealing with. Yeah. If the person wasn't sharing with you what was happening, they were just being a dick to you. Yeah. Or they were just being cold, or you didn't even know, you know, you have a wall up. I don't know why you have a wall up, and they weren't telling you, and now they told you what's going on. Now because now you've been given the power to make your own choice. Right. Because a lot of times people make choices for us. They think it's best for us to make choices for us, and that's not true. Yeah. So you have to be able to say, you told me everything I needed to know. Now I get to make the decision whether or not I'm okay with it, if I support it, if I could stay, if I could help, whatever that could be. I think a lot of times the other person sometimes is also their own insecurities of losing the person by being honest keeps that whole, sometimes some of this shit is so like you're walking on a tightrope, right? Like you want to be honest, but how honest can you be? Because, you know, it'll scare the person away and whatever. And here's the reality. If the person is the right person for you, none of that fucking shit matters. Right. I mean, that's that. Right. We can both look at everyone and say that that's the fucking reality. Yeah. Nothing matters. Yeah. Right? There's no pretending I have to hide this part of me. Because if you have to hide parts of yourself, or you have to eat shit, or you have to pretend to be someone that you're not. Yeah. No. Right. You're literally not living your right life. Right.
But you're again, this goes back to, I mean, this is all about words. If you're living one way, but you're saying something to make that other person happy, you're unhappy. Correct. And they have a false sense of what their relationship is actually like.
And then the twofold on that is you are devaluing the relationship, devaluing the other person, but even more importantly, you're devaluing yourself. Right.
Right.
So it's like, how is anybody
not-
winning in that? Like,
Correct.
nobody's winning
aren't.
in that because, oh, you're in a relationship. Okay, but so what?
Right.
What does that even mean if it's not a good one? If
Right.
it's not a healthy one? If you're not happy? If you're pretending all the time? Like,
Yeah.
that's, you know, that, and if someone's continuing to show you that they're going to shit on you and you keep taking it, and then they know, that's the funny part, right? Now, the worst part of those kind of people, I'm going to throw them in the love bombing category.
Yeah.
As soon as they know that you don't want to have anything to do with them anymore, because you're done now. You're like, okay, you know what? My eyes are open. I saw the words don't match the actions. Enough
this
is
isn't
enough.
Serving me anymore.
Right. I've done this enough times. This is it.
Yeah.
This is going to hurt me. I know it's going to hurt me. I know this is hard, but I'm going to do it. This person suddenly will try even harder with the words. It's going to be even harder words. It's going to be even harder love bombing.
There'll be more emotion
and
put in
more
there.
sprinkles of bullshit.
Right.
Because they want so bad. They want. I have to tell a quick story.
Or they'll change them.
I have to tell a quick story about this. It's
okay, quick story,
up.
and then we got to go to bed.
I know, but it's fucked up, but it's interesting. So when I first moved out after my breakup, and I moved out and was living in Four Lakes, I was meeting all these people. I was 32. Everyone was 25 to 26 years old, and so they all had these very interesting lives. There was one girl in particular that she was kind of slutty, I guess. Like, everyone always wanted to sleep with her, you know, whatever. She was kind of like, whatever.
Okay.
She had a boyfriend. She had an on and off again boyfriend. And she, you know, she would cheat on him. He would cheat on her. And they went back and forth and whatever. But she was like madly in love with him. But at the same time, he would always he would break up with her. And then she would like cry and beg and want him back. And then she'd go run after her other people that she would run to when they were broken up. It was so disgustingly unhealthy between all these people. It was I remember thinking, oh my God, like, what's happening? Like, so I was trying to kind of like help her like through it a little bit, but I would talk to her and I would say to her, when he calls you, you're not interested. Like, are you interested? And she's like, well, if he was this or he was that. And I'm like, but he's not. He's not those things for you. He might be those things for someone else, but he's not those. You two don't fit.
Right.
You're not a good fit for each other. You don't make each other happy. You make each other miserable. You know, you get together. You're together for a couple of days, and then you break up. You've been doing this for it was like a couple of years this had been going on.
Sure.
Super unhealthy for both of them, right? So she was getting better and was getting to this point where she blocked him in her phone and she wasn't talking to him and all this other stuff. Well, of course, guess what? He didn't like it. All of a sudden now she was, so we were out one night at the bar and he walks in and she's like, oh my God, there he is. I go, don't even look in his direction. Don't even say anything. And I had never met him before.
Yeah.
I knew who he was. And he starts coming over to the table and I walked over and I'm like, hey, you're so-and-so, right? And he's like, oh yeah, you're Tina. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, hey, how about you go sit over there on the other side of the room? And he's like, well, I want to talk to her. I go, yeah, we're having a good time. We're just hanging out. Why don't you go sit on the other side of the room? She doesn't really want to talk to me. He was like, well, shouldn't she tell me that? And I said, oh, she's already told you that multiple times. She already told me that you keep reaching out. Just leave her alone. Let her be. You guys don't work.
Yeah.
Whatever. And he's like, oh, what are you, like a therapist? I go, I'm not a therapist, but let's face it. This is a cat and mouse game. Feels like a chase for you, right? Yeah. And he's like, no, it's not. And he's like, that, I love her. I'm like, well, that's kind of a disgusting and sick way to show someone that you love them with the things that you guys do to each other. So he's like, fine, whatever. There's plenty of other girls. I'm like, yeah, okay, good. Go over on the other side of the, see you later. So she comes over and I went back over to talk to her and she was like all happy. She's having a good time, whatever. And I said, just do me a favor. He's probably going to text you later. Keep your phone blocked, blah, 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 blah. So she was all happy. So a couple weeks went by. She had not talked to him. She was doing better, I thought, right? So she was doing better. And then all of a sudden, it was about 2 weeks later, and I got a random phone call from her saying that he just left her house. And she was crying and hysterical and whatever, and I could barely hear what she was saying. So it turns out that he came back in, like she let him back in because now it had been like 3 weeks had gone by and they hadn't talked, and she showed him that she stayed away from him and all this, and then all of a sudden, so in the morning he was leaving her house after having sex with her, and he goes, yeah, I knew you didn't change. I knew I could have you again if I wanted to. He's like, bye, and he left, and she was devastated, and I'm like, what a fucking piece of shit, by the way. But anyway, she let it happen. She fell for the words and all the other shit. So she ended up taking a bunch of pills.
Right.
And when she called me later, I was calling to check in on her, and she wasn't answering me, and I was really worried about her. So like me and my neighbor and a couple other people, we all went over, and the neighbor climbed up her balcony, and we saw her laying on the floor in her living room, and we got in through her sliders and, you know, rushed her to the hospital. And so I'm going through her phone, and I'm reading all these fucking text messages between them. It was just so awful, but the words and the mixing, the love and the whatever and all this shit. So she took all these pills, and we ended up taking her, and she got her stomach pumped, and they kept her overnight, and it was like they had a psych evaluation. All this shit was happening. People called us drama queens for helping her, but her blood pressure like went down in the middle of the night, and they basically said if we didn't bring her to the hospital, she probably would have died.
Right.
So I mean, whatever. There was a lot of people that were like mad that we.
Right.
However, when I did get a chance to talk to her, I said, you know, not right away, obviously. I said, what the hell happened? And she's like, because he kept trying to text her. Actually, when we were driving to the hospital, we saw him driving to her place because I saw the text from him. So I texted him back and said, stop texting me, go fuck yourself. And then I deleted him out of her phone.
Right.
But he went over to find her, and he had no idea what was happening. And the crazy part was that I said, what happened? She said, he told me all the right things. He told me that he loved me and only me, and that he wanted to get back together, and that he realized all that time he missed me and how much growth he saw in me. And she goes, oh, he said all the right things, and I just couldn't help it because that's what I always wanted him to say to me. Literally what she said to me.
Of course.
And that was what happened.
Yeah.
And I remember that, and I tell that story sometimes to people who are like, again, when it comes to people, he knew, and then to turn around and say to her, I knew I could have you if I wanted you.
Right.
And I knew this was all bullshit. And I knew that basically it was like, I have this power over you. Ha ha, fuck you.
And he just shit all over
and
all
just
of her
left
progress
her.
And everything.
Yeah, it was fucked up.
Yeah.
But her lip service to me was that she wasn't talking to him.
Yeah, right.
And then she was.
Right.
Right. So, and that's what I told her.
And that usually is going to happen. So
yeah, of course. Well, she was hiding it because she didn't want me to be upset and didn't want me to not be her friend.
This happens
anymore.
here, and then they have to provide it over here because they're trying to look a certain way, and it's just
your plate's spinning.
But
anyway, so that was like an extreme version of it, but it's also another. The person. My point was the person knows what to say when you feel like you've moved on. You have to stay strong and know that that person is an ex for a reason.
It's over when it's over.
That is correct.
That's how it has to be. So anyway, nice.
That's why words they only have meaning when they come from someone who can back up what they're saying with their actions consistently. Yeah. Not once, not twice.
Yeah.
All the time, consistently.
I agree.
You have to pay attention to that too. That's another big one.
Yeah.
It's not just their nice
That's
ones.
What I said earlier.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Oh, correct. Here's an action. 1, 2, 3.
It's got to be
here's an action.
all the time. There's consistency in it. That's exactly right. That's really a huge piece of it.
Although that is consistent, but it's not enough.
It's not. That's a piece that's missing for people though. Is that person's really nice? Yeah, they were nice to you that first time they met you, or until they got everything they needed from you. Then they're not anymore. Right. Are they consistent? Is that who they are as a person, or is that who they show you they are to kind of reel you in? Right. That's where we need to pay attention. So.
Yeah. Anyway. All good stuff.
Yes.
If you have questions, comments, insights, whatever it is, reach out to us on Facebook at Real Shower Talk, and then Instagram real.shower.talk. Mm-hmm. And then, what's our email?
realshowertalk@gmail.com.
Perfect.
So,
I guess until next time.
Signing off from Las Vegas.
That's right. Ching, 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 ching.
Thanks for listening, guys.
All righty.
Bye.